Hello and welcome back to Self-Wealth Real Estate Podcast with Luke Boyron. Today I am interviewing Darren Moore. Now, Darren is a real estate investor and also one of my home buying specialists. He buys all of our houses in the Vancouver area in British Columbia. So Darren is originally from Ontario, so he understands kind of the Ontario real estate market, but he lives in Vancouver. He buys houses for us out there that we assign and we flip. So Darren is going to talk about the process of buying homes privately from a seller. We talk about comping properties. We talk about how to be ready to buy a home if you're in a seller's house. So if you've ever thought, I'm used to buying houses directly from the MLS through a realtor, but what happens if I have an opportunity to buy one privately? We get into that conversation, that discussion, what to get you ready for. After that, we talk about Darren's own investments. He invests remotely in Prince Albert, Saskatchewan. He's never been there himself, and yet he owns 10 properties out there, and they sound like excellent cash flowing deals. So he talks about how he does that. And of course, we talk about the best and worst deals he's ever done and the lessons learned. Darren's very articulate and intelligent, and you'll understand why he is so great at buying homes from sellers in BC for us. And I think you'll learn a lot from this interview. So thank you for watching. Welcome, Darren, to the show.
Thanks for having me, Luke.
So, Darren, we're first going to be talking about what you do in Cash House Buyer, and in particular in BC House Buyer, since you are based out of the Vancouver area. And then we're going to be talking about your own real estate investments and what you do that way. So, can you tell everyone, what did you do before real estate and before joining the company?
So I worked in the travel industry in a sales role where I sold travel kind of advertising products, as well as this company actually had a product that kind of competed with those daily deal type of buying. So I did that for almost 10 years. So that was meeting with some travel companies, hotels, a lot of restaurants, a lot of local activity providers as well. So it was really working with a lot of small businesses. So my sales experience was always B2B, and it wasn't, I didn't have B2C experience. So working for this company was the first time I was going into people's homes, doing my job.
A little bit of a different sales process, I assume.
Well, yeah, from going to, into the Four Seasons Hotel Vancouver and then into some houses that need some renovation work was a big change.
Absolutely. I imagine. And then, can you tell people what you do with our company?
Yeah, I'm a buying specialist. So I'm the person that you send to see the properties in person. I see properties in the Vancouver area, in the Lower Mainland here, and I tour them. I meet with the homeowner. I talk to them about the dates they'd like to close on, just talk about their situation. And of course, we talk about price, and I actually negotiate the purchase of the property. So I sign the contract of purchase and sale. So from when an appointment is set by our company to when the contract is signed, that's all me.
Okay. Now, for the listeners, Darren is originally from Ontario. He moved to Vancouver with your previous role.
That's right.
And so
company, they moved me to Vancouver. They wanted to grow their West Coast business, and that's why I'm here.
Okay. And then you've stayed out there. So Darren does understand generally, how we do things in Ontario. He is familiar with the greater Toronto area and how we do things. However, we're mostly going to be talking about how he does things in Vancouver, though if there's anything, specifically different, we may want to just point it out the audience that some things are done differently in BC. But one of the things I think would be helpful for our audience is understanding how to put together a private deal. If someone has never bought a house privately without a realtor, and let's say they hear about a friend of a friend who's selling their house, or they inherited a house and they need to sell it and it needs work, and they want to put together their first deal. So, Darren isn't very involved with the marketing, and he does, speak to our lead managers, but he doesn't take the initial calls from the sellers. So Darren gets an appointment set for him, and he has details about the house generally from the lead intake, our lead managers. But then he is meeting with the seller. That appointment's set with him, and he's meeting with the seller for the first time. So let's assume something similar is happening where they've been told some details of the property. This is a friend of a friend, and they possibly inherited a house. They don't know what to do with it. You're going in, and you've never bought a house before, or our listeners never bought a house privately before. They bought real estate before. They know how to invest in real estate. They just always use the MLS. So how do you go about it? What's the first step? How do you know if you even want to look at this house? How do you know what it's worth? What do you do?
So I try to get as much information on the property as I could to begin with. A lot of that is available publicly in British Columbia. And then I would use an online tool, something like, I like Redfin a lot, although there's others that some people like House Sigma. Try to find comparables, see what the market is like for a property like that. And you kind of get numbers in your head or jot them down, put them in your phone, and get an idea of kind of a range of where you need to come in terms of price based on condition. And so the idea is to plan ahead so that you can go in there and kind of just, as you walk through the property, kind of, you have a little bit of a meter going on in your head, I can pay this much, or no, I saw some things that need some work and I have to lower my offer. Just try to find out any information.
So you're looking at comparables and trying to estimate the value, but you don't exactly know what condition the house you're going to see is in.
No.
So you kind of need to understand, if it's really nice, it could be this kind of price. If it's really rough, it could be this price, and then trying to balance somewhere in between. Now, we haven't talked too much about doing comparables. In my opinion, comparables is a mix of art and science. It's not a hard science.
You're right.
But there's definitely art to it. But there is a science aspect too. Can you give us a bit of an overview? Like what does comping look like? How do you know? You go on Redfin. I use House Sigma in Ontario for at least Southern Ontario. You can get comparables sent by realtors. These other houses in the neighborhood have sold. How do you compare this? How do you know what your house might be worth?
So I'll give you an example. Maybe that's the best way to explain it. I just, before our call here, I was doing some comps, running some comps for an appointment that I have in Surrey this afternoon. And the property in Surrey, thankfully, is this very, very common type of house that we see in the Lower Mainland called a BC box, which is typically built in the late 60s, the 70s, or the 80s. And it's kind of like this rectangular house that has a split level entry, and then 2 or 3 bedrooms upstairs, and then the ability typically to make a suite with a separate entrance in the basement. And
similar kind of to raised bungalows in Ontario.
Exactly. So what's great is I go on, I open up, Redfin, I type in the address and actually just bring up the page and see, is there, maybe there was a recent listing. There's some photos of the property. There isn't usually, but maybe. And then I zoom back out to the neighborhood, because there's actually, Redfin will tell you what neighborhood it's in, and you can just click there and then see the neighborhood. And then what I'll do is I'll adjust filters. I'll look for properties. I look for properties that were built between the 60s and 1990, and that were between 1,700 square feet and 2,500 square feet, because that's typically the range that these are in. And then I try to see what's sold, and then look at the photos and the price. So I see, okay, a property in fair condition that needs some updating sold for a certain price, and then properties that are fully renovated are selling typically higher. And then you kind of get an idea of what maybe your as-is value of the property is. If you see a fixer-upper home that has sold, you get an idea, okay, maybe if this property needs a lot of work, that's what its market value could be. And then when you see a property that's been renovated, that tells you what your ARV is, which is your after repair or your after renovation value. So that is your kind of North Star. That's your end goal. That is your exit. That, you might say in business terms, that's what if your job, if you're looking to rehab the property and sell it, then that's what you want to exit at. So you'll need to factor in all of your costs to renovate as well. And just to get into that, what's great is that I know the approximate price to fully renovate a BC box house, because it's the most common property that I've bought. I've bought in the last 3 years, I've bought about 140 to 150 properties for the company. And this one is by far the most common style of property. And then whether we're renovating the property as a company ourselves, or some of our investor partners are renovating them, we can always talk to them afterwards and ask, what was the renovation cost? And for a BC box, It's typically about 150,000. It's inflation might have pushed that up a little bit. It might be closer to 150 to 170 to fully renovate the entire property. So to finish, I guess your question, then I basically from doing all that, doing the quick math, well, actually, it's not that quick. We have a flipping calculator that makes it quick. That we have a tool that we can just plug in the after repair value, you can plug in the renovation cost, and you plug in a price that you'd like to pay for the property, and it'll tell you whether you should move forward or not on the purchase. So from all of that, you get these numbers in your head, or you can write them down, jot them down, and come in fully prepared to sit down with the homeowner and talk about the numbers and make them an offer there on the spot in the first appointment.
We call that our flipping calculator. It's something I put together a long time ago. It's a simple spreadsheet on Excel, but it just calculates out kind of all the expenses we expect. Something people have to remember is for any kind of Excel formula, garbage in, garbage out. If you're putting bad numbers into the cells, like if you're wrong on your ARV and wrong on your, on your renovation costs, then just because it says, you're going to make this percentage, go ahead with the deal, doesn't mean it's a good deal. Garbage in, garbage out. But if you put in good conservative numbers in, hopefully, those are accurate results. I'll expand a little bit on the comping because I think it's something we haven't talked in detail, and I think it's really important for people to know, to understand. When I think of it as a science, it's more how an appraiser would go about it, right? They compare to other properties, and then they set numerical values to adjustments. And the closest I can imagine is if you think of a condo tower, an apartment tower, and you have, a 400 square foot bachelor on the 50th floor and the identical 400 square foot bachelor on the 40th floor, and everything else is the same. All the finishes are the same, right? And that one sold a week ago, the one on the 50th floor. Now you want to say, what's mine on the 40th floor worth? Pretty much the same thing. You're going to have, nothing else is different. A week ago it sold, so the market's not different. You're not adjusting for that. The only thing you're adjusting is a little bit for the difference in view or height. So there'll be 40 is still a high floor compared to 50. So you might have, a few $1,000s, possibly depends on the building and the values and all of that. But, at most, maybe 10 grand. Not a huge difference in adjustment, but you're going to have, and that is the more scientific approach, that we're talking about, where it's more of a science, is you're going to say, well, this one sold for $500,000. Mine might be worth $490 because I'm adjusting for height, and that is it. Now, when you get into much more complicated properties or where there aren't direct comparables, especially in rural areas, or when your home doesn't match the other homes in the neighborhood, we get that sometimes, it was maybe the original farmhouse and then a new subdivision was built around it. So your house is 100 years old and all the other ones are much newer and larger and different. That becomes much harder to estimate the comparables. And if your house, for example, doesn't have a basement and all the comparables do, or you have 2 bedrooms and the comparables have 3 or 4, or you have 4 bedrooms and your comparables have 2, you may have to look at what has sold in the area. They may not match your home at all, and you may have to make very large adjustments. And those adjustments, trying to figure out what is mine worth, or maybe something similar sold, but it sold 3 years ago. Now how am I adjusting for the time difference because nothing similar has sold? So that's where the art comes into play here. It's understanding kind of what a buyer's perception would be, how much the market may value these things, how much of a discount they're going to need compared to those other factors, or how much extra value is there in what you provide. For example, a house we're flipping in Canada, in the Ottawa area. It was a burnt down house. We rebuilt it. The sellers, the year before it burnt down, had put in a $100,000 pool in the backyard. There's a beautiful pool there, pool heater and everything. So now we're trying to estimate, how much extra might a buyer pay for this pool, and understanding we're almost shrinking our buyer pool by having a pool. But because it was an expensive pool, we're not going to get it's a $100,000 pool. We're not going to get $100,000 extra for the house, for sure. But do we think we could maybe get $40,000 more than an identical house? Yes. And what also goes into the art here is our house is a better lot, has the pool, bigger than some of the houses. It's going to be more newly renovated. All of those things, if you take the value of what those things are separately, you say, okay, $40,000 for this, 40,000 for that, 40,000 for this. You add that up, you say 120,000 extra. That's not realistic because now you're hitting way above what the comparables are in an area, and someone's not going to pay that to live in that area. So even though individually you might say 40, 40, 40, combined 40, 40, 40 might turn into 80 total. And you need to understand, you can have too much of an expensive house in an area. So all of that being said, all of that being said, it's an art and a science. And if you can spend time running comparables on properties and start to understand what they're worth, I recommend if you don't do this, if you don't have experience with this, take a look at the properties that get listed for sale in an area and then run comparables based on what has sold in the area. Write down your estimate of value and set up a sold watch for that property and then compare it to how you estimated what it would sell for. So run practice runs if you're a listener learning this. So I went a little long on there, but now you've run your comparables. You have an idea of what the property is going to look like. You're now meeting the seller in their home. You said there was a resource you use to get information on the properties. What is that you use out in BC?
So there's something called BC Assessment, which is a website where you can actually just type in the address and it'll give you a lot of information about the property. It might be similar to something you called MPAC in Ontario, but I'm not sure because I actually never used MPAC. But I've heard a lot of...
I think there's similarities, but I believe BC Assessment is publicly available. Is that correct?
That's right. So it will publicly tell you the year the property was built, the square footage, the lot square footage. It will show you an outline of the lot. You can click on neighboring lots to see what their assessed value is, how many bedrooms and bathrooms the property has, and if it has a garage or a carport. And if it's, 1 story, 2 story, what type of property is it? Is it a condo, etc.? So it's actually quite a useful resource. I think it's mostly meant for people to look up their own assessment, but it's publicly available.
Okay,
it makes a lot of sense.
I wish we had that in Ontario. We do pay for MPACs. We need access. We spend probably $5,000 to $10,000 a year to have a similar resource in Ontario.
Gosh.
So yeah.
Well, I'm glad we have that.
Okay, so now you have the information on the home. You've met the seller. Now, would you recommend someone going in for the first time? Should they just go in and negotiate, or do you think it's worth them bringing in a contract already partially completed?
They should go in with a contract partially completed because you never know how ready the homeowner is going to be to sell. And having a contract ready can allow you to leave an offer with a homeowner, even if they're not fully ready. So you definitely should prepare a contract, fill out all the details, except for the price, of course, and the closing date, perhaps, because that's not something that you worked out already. But fully come in ready, because I have gone into properties and fully bought them and filled out, signed all the paperwork within 30 minutes. And that includes a walkthrough of the property too. And then other properties take a year for me to buy privately. So quite a range.
Yeah, absolutely. I do recommend when you walk through the property, if the seller's okay with it, take some pictures and video. So you remember what it looked like as you're reviewing things. If you need to go back and run new comparables, it's good to have kind of pictures and video to refresh your memory. I mean, obviously for us, Darren and I, we look at a lot of houses, so it kind of can be hard to remember the details on one. So pictures and video help that way, but just in general, I don't know, my memory is not as good as I'd like to be.
Get permission for everything that you do. When you're going into houses, people are expecting that you are going to come in like a bully and you're going to start verbally trashing their home and all of this. So first thing, we walk into the home and say, hey, what would you like to do first? Do you have questions for me? Would you like to sit down, or should we do a tour? And usually they'll say tour, but that at least gives them the opportunity to, if they have some apprehensions, to kind of get to know you a little bit more. And then, tour the home, take a photo of each room, as long as they're okay with that. Sometimes homeowners are not okay with someone just coming in their home and snapping pictures right away, and definitely don't push that, because that's it doesn't help, especially in this market. Tour the home, and then hopefully you can sit down on the couch or at the kitchen table and just go through it all step by step. And during that conversation, price is not the first thing that you should be talking about, because it's kind of like if I was buying a car, I don't just point at cars and say to the salesperson at a dealership, hey, tell me what the price is. What's that one? What's that one? You kind of want to know, what model is it? What features does it have? What's the gas mileage? All kinds of things. You need to kind of work out the details before you just jump right into price.
Yeah, absolutely. I think also what you're saying is a bit of a sales technique in that some people have a philosophy that the more you can have a seller say yes to you, the more likely they'll say yes to your price and your contract. So should I take off my shoes? Yes. Is it okay if I take pictures? Yes. Would you mind if I have a glass of water? Yes. Or is it okay if I use, so getting them to say yes regularly during this can be a helpful thing that almost trains the mindset to being agreeable. And so some people say, I don't know that we purposely do that, but some people use that as a bit of a sales technique.
Sure. And you really want to talk about everything else under the sun and get to know each other first. So you can establish that you're just a normal person who's working for a company looking to buy properties. That because almost all of these people that I meet, like, they've never had someone like me come into their home before. It's not like I'm like the HVAC repairman where it's like, okay, come on in. It's just like, this is a completely new experience for people. Calling a company and then having a representative come in to look at their home and make an offer to buy it privately. It's just so foreign and they just don't know what to expect. So then sometimes at the end of appointments, the homeowners will tell me that was way different than I expected, like in a good way. That was way better than I thought it would go. And sometimes they actually just say, okay, please I think we're going to proceed, because that exceeded my expectations in terms of how easy it was to talk with us and the whole process.
Excellent. So what you said as well is getting to know the person. Part of that is trying to understand their motivations, what they're going through, and in some ways how we can help. So can you talk about some of the ways that you're able to negotiate or put in the contract, or just some of the benefits that you're able to provide sellers that they may not have through the traditional process?
For sure. What I do is I usually ask them how they found us, and it's usually through some kind of marketing that we did. And then I let them know that everything in our marketing is true. And then we kind of go through the main points with them. So first thing I talk about is flexibility on closing dates. That as an investor, that you have a lot of flexibility to close on a date that's convenient for the seller, because for us, it's a project rather than moving our own family into the home. So this afternoon, I'm going to see a house where the homeowner has bought a pre-construction condo, but they've got that BC Box 1970s house that they need to sell in order to close on the condo. So our conversation after I tour their home is going to be a lot about, what kind of timing is this going to be for you to move into your condo and have to pay for it? Because the benefit is that we can line up our closing the day or two before then, or we can even give you a flexible close where you could change your close date once to align with the close date of your next purchase. So that's one of the major benefits, is you choose the closing date. Another benefit is that we buy the property as is. And I can mention that as I'm walking through a home. If we see anything that needs to work, I just say, hey, we buy it as is, so you don't have to worry about that. Sometimes I do walk through people's homes and they say, oh, I'm going to fix that. Oh, I'm going to paint this wall. I'm going to replace the flooring. And I say, whoa. Like, the reason I'm here is so that you don't have to do that. So just so you know, you don't have to do that. So just stop all of your handyman work and let us take over. So we do buy as is with no home inspection, which is a major benefit in this market. In this market, home inspections now are extremely common, and home inspection almost always finds something and finds a lot of things, a lot of deficiencies with the property. And then on the market with a realtor, the buyer will use that list of deficiencies to negotiate a lower price for the property. But with us, we don't do that. We don't do a home inspection. So there's no list of deficiencies. We don't come back and say, because the gutters need to be replaced, because of this, because of that, we're going to lower the price. That's not what happens. I let them know that there's no commissions, because I'm not a realtor. Neither of us have realtors that represent us, that it's just a private sale. So it's almost as if I say, it's almost like if I'm your neighbor, what would your neighbor do if they wanted to buy your home? They would come over, they would tour your home, And then they would sit down with you on the couch and we'd have a cup of tea and then we would just talk about all the details. And that's what we're doing right now. I let them know that each party needs a lawyer or a notary. In BC, you can use a notary to close the transaction. And I let them know that a key benefit is that their home is sold, and it's sold without staging required or without doing open houses and multiple showings over and over again. So in this market, again, the speed of transaction to know that your home is actually sold is a huge selling point. Some of my some houses I follow on, just like you said, a way to get better at your comping is to kind of follow houses and see what they sell for. I do that. And I even have a friend who's trying to sell their home in Chilliwack, and it's been for sale for 5 or 6 months. And gosh, I feel bad for them. But knowing that your home can sell right away is a really great benefit. And that's one of the key reasons why people sell their home to us, is because it just is sold. It literally can be sold the first day that I see the property. And to have that stress relief is worth a lot to homeowners.
All right. Well, you're selling me on this. It sounds great. So Darren, what are some common objections that you hear from sellers? And then, what's your rebuttal typically to those?
So
what are the kind of most common?
The most common is that a seller looks at a renovated or at least market-ready home that is sold on the market. And when I say market-ready, that doesn't mean it's a new renovation. It's just definitely move-in ready, that there's no major work required, and it's not dated, over 25 or 30 years in terms of the finishings. They look at that and they look at the price that the property sold for on the market, and then that's what they want their home to sell for. And you can, if you think about it, it's kind of natural. Hey, my neighbor sold for this amount. That's what I want from you. Really basic though, you got to realize that the neighbor, if they sold their home for $1 million in BC, then they paid $30,000 in realtor commissions to the buying and selling realtor. So automatically that number, I let them know that, first of all, that was done through an agent. So there's commissions. So when you say your neighbor got 1.2 million, they didn't get 1.2 million. If they did zero work on the property to get it to that point, and they paid zero for staging, then they got 1.17, or actually less, because there'd be even more commissions, 1.65 million kind of thing. But of course, there's a lot of work there actually is a lot of work, even with an agent, that goes into selling your house, right? They want it to be clutter free. They'd like you to fix up things that need to be fixed. So I basically explain all this to the homeowner, that this is what you need to do to sell your home. And I've bought and sold on my own a lot of real estate just for my own personal residences and as investments. And I've actually I sold a condo I lived in privately, so I know how to do that. And I've sold properties I've lived in with a realtor. I know the entire process. So I just explain it to them from my point of view, and let them know that's, as an investor, also, we can't just trade a dollar for a dollar. We can't buy a property for 1.2 million and then sell it for 1.2 million. That will result in a 6-figure loss for us. So I just explained to them that we do need to buy the home with a number in mind that we need to sell it for. So that means that we have to buy it for lower than that. And usually, if the seller is reasonable, they'll understand that. So that is the biggest objection. There's others where I wouldn't say this is an objection, but I like to find out if the homeowner is actually interested in selling or not, because we do get a lot of tire kickers. And when they tell me that they're thinking of selling maybe in the next year or two, and after a long conversation with them, I can't really find any motivation or any actual reason that they're actually going to sell quickly, then I'll know that they're just not ready to sell. And that's not something that I can really overcome. If someone's not ready to sell, I'm definitely not going to try to convince them that, no, in fact, you need to sell now. That is completely ridiculous. It really is. The only thing maybe I could tell them is if we were in kind of a hot market, I could just let them know that hot market won't last forever. So that's just one benefit if they do decide to sell quickly. But I'm not in the business of twisting anyone's arm to sell their home quickly when they're not comfortable with that. And then a third one I'd say is sometimes homeowners just think that I can buy their home probably for top dollar and I'm comfortable with them living in the home and renting to me for, market rents, or even they'd probably want a little bit less. And that's not the case. They basically assume that we're some kind of a developer where we're really, really hungry for the property. We really want it. We'll let them live there. We just really, really want it. And in our business, we're not developers, right, Luke? So we will buy any property, but we'll buy it if we can make it make sense for us. So if we can buy it and find a way to make money for the company, then that's what we'll do. But there is not any property or any group of properties that we are extremely interested in buying in the province. So that's reflected in price, of course, that if you really, really want something, you might pay a premium for it. But if you have a business where you'll buy anything, any property, if you can make it make sense for you, then that's going to impact, of course, the price that you pay for the property. You can't pay market or over market value for something. If you're not a developer, if you're not going to develop, for example, a single lot or a group of single lots into a multifamily, because we're not doing that, at least in BC, of course, we're not there.
Are you a savvy real estate investor looking to maximize your profits? Well, if you're buying properties off the MLS, you're not making as much as you could. The most lucrative way to boost your bottom line is by acquiring investment properties off market. By buying privately off market, you're able to save tens of thousands. Now, the problem is finding off market properties is really hard and takes a lot of time, effort, and money to do. Bliss is your number one source, delivering exclusive deals that you will not find on the MLS directly to your inbox. Bliss's extensive network and insider connections gives you access to properties that are not publicly listed and at a discount. We've helped hundreds of investors across Ontario and BC source the right properties at the right time for their portfolio. Buying assignable purchase contracts through Bliss at a discount helps facilitate higher returns, lower competition, and deals that align perfectly with your investment goals. From start to finish, Bliss's world-class team of real estate professionals makes the process seamless for all investors. If you're ready to elevate your real estate investment strategy, visit us at offmarketbliss.ca to join our buyers list and start receiving exclusive off-market deals directly to your inbox. The most profitable opportunities await, and they're exclusive to you and our valued buyers list members. For your next project, check out Bliss, the go-to source for off-market deals.
Okay. I think that's really helpful. At this point, you'd be, if the seller agrees, you'd be signing the contract. If you think it's worth it, you'd be leaving a contract with them, possibly following up, or, someone could leave, maybe give them a price, because that's kind of the main factor, price. And if they can agree to the price, you can come back and, make sure all the clauses and everything in the contract makes sense. If you're doing this for the first time, possibly have, if you work with a realtor regularly, possibly have them review the contract. They're not going to get paid on that deal, but you may be able to, if you work with them regularly, they may be okay helping you, or possibly have your lawyer or notary kind of review the contract, make sure you've got all your I's dotted and T's crossed and everything's legal and filled out properly and keeps you safe. You get that signed up, and then you get it ready for closing. So that's the way to buy it privately. Thank you for that, Darren. Let's talk a bit about your own real estate portfolio and your own investments. Can you tell me what you do there?
Okay, so it's a long story that I'll try to make really quick. So it's 2008, and I am 25 years old, and I've been married for 1 year, out of university for 2. And back then, YouTube was around, but you couldn't just Google how to invest in real estate and then automatically have these 100 free videos telling you how to do that. I had a couple of friends in university that were really keen on investing in real estate, and they had already kind of started a company doing this. And so I was asking a friend of mine, hey, can I get in on your next thing? And he said, okay. Eventually he contacted me and said, okay, we're buying properties in Prince Albert, Saskatchewan. And we need joint venture partners to buy, because he said, I remember him saying, because we're not Donald Trump. He said, we don't have unlimited credit. So we need to partner with people who can take on the mortgages. The idea is that this was a condo that I bought, that the prices were rising really quickly in Saskatchewan. And so I bought this condo, and the idea was to sell it a year later. So they would rent it out, pay all the bills and everything for a year, but then we were going for the appreciation play. And after a year, we'd sell it and then split the proceeds. And what really happened is after a year, the property did not appreciate at all. I bought it at the peak of the market, and my friends, one of them was married and their spouse was part of the business with them, and they split up. So everyone just left. Like they were in the town. They had moved there temporarily, and then they all just left. They wrote me a letter giving me some options for property management. My friend gave me the keys in person, and we sat down and had a coffee and kind of just talked about it. But that was it. So they were just out, and they said, "Here's your keys, enjoy your property in Prince Albert, Saskatchewan." So I thought, what? So I hired a property manager. I could choose between an individual property manager or a company, and they gave me two options, and I went with this company, and I just rented the place out. I found that my friends never paid property tax on the property when they should have, so I had a big bill owing for that. And then I found out that the property was not cash flowing, that it was losing money every month. So I basically had to subsidize that property for a very long time. I eventually switched over from this company because they were just managing it and doing nothing really. And then I had a conversation with this individual property manager, and he said, "Do you know your condo unit has a washer and a dryer like hookups, and you don't have a washer and a dryer in it? If you added those appliances, you could charge 100 or 150 more in rent." And this guy wasn't even my property manager, but he just gave me that tip. And I thought, you know what, I should switch to him. So I did. Prices went down in that market. I just held this property because the prices were going down. I would sell it for a loss. And then there was someone else in the condo, one other condo owner owned a unit and was not happy with the amount of money in the reserve fund. And she was getting a lawyer involved and was talking about doing, us as owners, doing big cash calls, like to prop up the reserve fund. And I didn't like that at all. This is something that was not really making me money. So I said, and I asked her, "Why are you doing this?" And she said, "I really want to sell my unit, but I don't think I can with a low reserve fund." And I said, "Okay, I'll just buy your unit from you." So I'll give you some numbers. The unit I bought in 2008 was $144,000 for a 2-bedroom unit, 2-bed, 1-bath. And then I bought.
And how old was this condo?
Say again?
How old was this condo?
Rebuilt. And just for example, in Toronto, you could buy something similar, like along the subway line, for in the low 200s at that point. So,
wow,
$144K in Prince Albert, low 200s in Toronto. Anyway, so then I bought her unit from her. Hers was right next to mine, same layout. Hers was renovated, mine wasn't. I bought hers for $75,000, and I bought it privately. So that made more sense in my opinion. And then it went so well, just the transition to buying it with my property manager, and we were renting it for, I think, $1,050 a month, 1,050. And I said, you know what, this is great. I should buy more real estate now that prices are so low. Because prices had come down so much, but the rents had slowly been creeping up and up and up. And I thought this could be a really good time to buy in this market. I also had a pretty good end of 2021 and early 2022 working for you, Luke. So I had a lot more cash to put down as down payments for these properties. So then I thought, but you know what? I don't want to buy condos. I want to buy houses because I think that they could appreciate more and I could do more to add value to them. So then I started buying single detached houses. They're all less than 1,000 square feet. They're typically a single floor with a basement. Usually the basement's almost always unfinished. But then so when I bought that other unit was early 2022. And over the past 2 years, I've bought 8 houses in addition to the 2 condos that I have. Price ranges for the purchases range anywhere between, I bought one for $47,000, and then the highest I paid was $85,000 I paid for a house.
Okay. And so what are you renting these for?
So the lowest rent I get is for that one that I bought for 47 grand. I rent it for $1,000 a month. And the key is one thing that I've really learned, maybe this will get to one of your questions you may be asking, but what have I learned to doing all this is that you really want to be able to add value and increase rents to these properties. So the one I bought for 47 grand, I typically, if it has a basement, I want to add bedrooms, and that's usually the place where you can do it, because all of a sudden you turn a 2-bedroom into a 4-bedroom and you can charge a few $100s more rent a month. But that one for $1,000, there's no basement really. It just got like this crawl space and things like that. But for $1,000 a month, the tenant does not get use of the detached garage, and I don't know why. This is a tenant I inherited when I bought the property. Mm-hmm. So my property manager said, "Hey, well, if we can fix up the garage a bit, then we can charge $100 more a month for rent." I thought, okay, that makes a lot of sense. And the property's not fenced. And he said, if you can add a fence, then you can charge another $50 a month to rent. I'm like, okay. So what I'm doing is just trying to figure out ways to make these properties more attractive to renters, have more bedrooms, that kind of thing, and then be able to raise rents. And in Saskatchewan, there were no laws about, there's no rent control type laws. So you can just raise rent as much as you want. And trust me, we're not gouging anyone. The lowest I get is $1,000 a month for a 2-bedroom. And then I have a 5-bedroom house that I rent for $1,400 a month. That one actually should be more like $1,500, but we got a tenant in before our renovations were done on it. And you might think like, why did you do that? Why did you finish renovations, then get the highest amount in rent? But I'm not controlled, and like after a year, we can raise the rent to market rents where it should be. So it's okay to rent for $1,400 a month for a year, and then raise the rent to $1,500 or $1,550.
Absolutely, yeah,
because you're allowed to, and that's what the market is. It's a 5-bedroom house, 5-bedroom, 2-bath. Like it's a good deal they're getting.
So what's your cash flow on these properties?
All right, so the first year is always very difficult because I have to put in work all the time. That's why I'm getting these properties for a good price. But I can tell you that like one of the first detached property I bought is now fully renovated and is just running as it should. So that property, I'm just bringing up my spreadsheet here, rents for $1,100 a month. And then the monthly costs, well, my total annual expense. So I'll just give you annual, and then we can divide by 12 if we want. Or my total annual rents were $13,200, and my total expenses were $6,411 for the year. So my profit was $67.88. So that works out to what? Divide that by 12. That would be $500 something a month in cash flow. Now that's like an ideal scenario right
now. So that's $6,411. That includes property taxes, insurance, maintenance, management.
Yeah.
Does it include your mortgage payment?
Yes, that includes interest as well.
Interest on mortgage. Okay, perfect. Okay, so
mortgage pay down. I don't consider that expense, of course.
Understandable. Now, do you have difficulty in getting mortgages on the less expensive properties? Do you have like problems with it? Like, that was $47,000. That's too cheap. Can't get a mortgage on that.
No, not because of the purchase price, but because of the size of the property. A lot of these are so small that these banks have these rules that say, hey, your property has to be at least 900 square feet for us to lend on it, or it needs to be 800 square feet. Now, Saskatchewan doesn't ever include square footage for basements. Maybe it's the same for Ontario. So the houses look small. They appear smaller than they are, I guess. Even if they have a finished basement, it just doesn't count as square footage. So actually, this property, I had to put 50% down on this property. So that's maybe why my interest expense is fairly low, that I paid $2,477 a year in interest, because I had to put...
And what did you pay for the property?
I paid $80, and I had to put $40 down, which was painful.
still, if you had put 20% down, you would still have a good amount of cash flow, because 20% down, that would have been 16,000. You would have had an extra 24,000 in mortgage payment. You would have paid an extra $1,200 a year in interest.
I got lucky that my maintenance for this year was like about $100 on this property. I think that this tenant is one of these guys who fixes things himself and doesn't call for help. Also, the property was fully renovated. I typically don't buy renovated properties, but it was fully renovated. I just needed to do windows and a roof box. And then one reason I buy properties in Saskatchewan is that my windows for the whole house were $5,900, and my roof was, wow, is that really it? My roof was about $4,000.
Wow, yeah.
So it's a small roof.
I used to get those prices in Toronto. I used to get those prices in Toronto. It's not anymore.
No, but people are willing, because they can buy a house for under $100K in this town, that they don't need to charge you these outrageous labor rates, right? So,
do you know what the population is of Prince Albert?
Yeah, although it's the third largest city in the province, I think its population is like 48,000. Oh no, 36,000. Sorry. It's super small. What you'll find in Saskatchewan is that Saskatoon and Regina have decent populations, and then there's a huge drop off. And then it's just all these ones that you've heard of, Moose Jaw, North Battleford, all these kind of towns. They've all got around 30,000 people in them, but Prince Albert just happens to be slightly higher than the rest of them.
How far is Prince Albert from Regina or Saskatoon?
It's 2 hours north of Saskatoon.
Okay.
Like I said, I've never even been there, which might surprise some people. But when my property manager is also my realtor, so he helps me buy the properties, and then he lets me know what work it needs to be done, and everything. And he's so good that I'll call him one day, and I said, hey, what do you think about this property we own or I own? What do you think about the rent for renewal when the lease is up? And he'll go, oh, already did it, raised it by $100. And I'm like, wow. And I said, it seems like what he does is he just runs these properties as if he owned them himself. And he says, well, that's the only way I know how to do it. And I said to him, well, a lot of property managers do the absolute minimum, where they just collect the rent. They're not proactive or whatsoever. And he said, oh, I couldn't be one of those guys who's just getting the money and not helping you out, right? So real salt of the earth guy, but really smart. And
I think that's a key in general. If you're investing at a distance, I think that's such a key, is to have you need somebody you trust there, right? And it sounds like you have this property manager who can be trusted, and that makes such a difference for you to be able to invest. So I love that idea. You're obviously living in Vancouver. For those who are in Ontario is not inexpensive. Ontario is expensive. Vancouver is even more expensive for the homes, and you have fewer options in Vancouver. I find, to invest outside. I mean, you have some of the smaller towns as you get further out, Chilliwack, Cultus Lake, Hope, Mission. You kind of get out there. There are some, compared to the Greater Toronto area, where the GTA just kind of expands outwards, and you have properties in every direction. Aurelia, North Bay, Peterborough. You have Lindsay. You go Brantford side towards London and Woodstock, etc. So I find it in the GTA, it's easier for investors to search outside of Toronto in multiple different directions, whereas in Vancouver, there's almost only one direction that people go. There's like one highway.
That's right.
And there's a few towns along there, but there's not as much opportunity to find those smaller towns to invest in. And even in those towns in Ontario now, they're not inexpensive at all. They're still quite expensive. So I think that's a smart thing you're doing. You're making money in an expensive market, and then you're investing in a cash flow market. And I think it's a smart strategy. People have different strategies. Obviously, some focus more on appreciation, and some focus more on cash flow. What we've seen that's interesting in the last few years is some markets will have both, and it fluctuates. And it sounds like when you started investing the first property in Prince Albert, you were hoping for the appreciation, and then with time you realized, I can actually get the cash flow out of this. you realized the appreciation wasn't happening. You had to go to cash flow. You went to cash flow, and what might happen in the future is that those properties may start increasing in value as well. So you're buying them now for cash flow, but you may also end up getting that appreciation. So it doesn't necessarily have to be one or the other, but a lot of people invest like it is. So let's move on to the next segment of our show, where we talk about the best and worst deals that you've ever done, or favorite and least favorite. And you can talk about your own deals, or you can talk about something you've done with the company. Do you have your best or your most or your favorite deal that you've ever done?
So my favorite deal was this one. I was actually on a mobile home that I did for the company, which is near Cultus Lake, which is a really popular tourist area near Chilliwack, about an hour and a half east of Vancouver. So we get this call from somebody who owns a mobile home in a park, leased land. They pay pad rent, and they say that they want to sell their home, and they're reasonable on price, et cetera, et cetera. So I booked on the appointment, and I go to meet them, and it's just a standard mobile home. I don't know what else to say about it. It was kind of dated, but it wasn't a disaster or anything like that. And the homeowner said that they have a family member that is very ill, and they need to move to the interior of BC like right away to be with them. And this is extremely important to them. And what they want to do is just sell their home to us quickly with no hassles. They don't want to try to sell from afar. They just want their home to just be sold and out of their mind and everything, so that they can focus on their family, which I thought that makes a lot of sense, And so the thing is that in what we do, when we have a property under contract, that we decide whether we want to close on the property. And if it's not a fit for us, then we will see if one of our buyers or investors wants to, if we can assign the property to them. What I knew already, this wasn't, my first month or anything in the company. What I knew is that our buyers don't like mobile homes at all. So we had almost had a no mobile home rule at that point, where we're basically like, we don't really buy mobile homes. Like, we don't really want them. They're hard to insure. They're hard to sell. There's a lot of issues with the parks and everything. But so what I did is I basically thought in my head, I said, okay, like, I really need to help this person, and I need to make sure that this sale actually goes forward. So I thought, what price would I be willing to buy this property at? Because if the company doesn't want it, none of our investors want it, or buyers. If they don't want it, then I, Darren Moore, will buy this property. Like, what will I buy it for? So I said, okay, I'll buy your property for $45,000. And where I came up with that is that I thought I'd have to pay you $5,000 assignment fee. So 50 was going to be my all in. Well, I'd have to pay probably some kind of land transfer, but maybe not. It's a mobile home anyway. So I tell them that, and I said, look, I know that's like, it feels very low, but the thing is that it seems like you just need to sell your home. Like, for this to work for you, I just need to make sure that someone will buy your home. And even if my company doesn't want it, I will buy it. And I said that to them. And then they said, okay, well, let's do it. And then we filled out all the paperwork and signed the offer the same day. And they walked me over to the management office, and I shook hands with the manager and everything. And I thought, oh boy, what am I getting myself into? Because I really thought, Luke, that you wouldn't want this. I don't know. It's just, there was a stigma around mobile homes. And so I thought, all right, here we go. And I remember calling Corey, the COO of our company, as I do, driving back to the office, and I told him about the sale, and he goes, oh, I think that's one that Luke's going to want. And then I was somewhat relieved, but I was also a little like, oh, okay, like, that's good. I was kind of excited, nervous at the same time, because I really did think I had to take it on myself. Like, I really thought it was just me. And then you did like it, and then you closed on it. The company did, and you did a kind of a minor rehab. I think you painted the kitchen cabinets. You did some nice kind of gravel or stonework in the front parking area. Some paint, maybe you painted the exterior of it, and so it looked a lot better than it did before. And then you put it on the market, and then it was on the market for a while, and it was sold a few times, and every time that some buyer would come up with some reason not to buy it. I think there was some concern that the park was going to sell, owner of the park was going to sell, and they'd be kind of stuck with this mobile home that has no home, that has no park to be in. So it sold 3 or 4 times over until it finally went for. So he paid 45 grand, and then it was sold, I think, for about 190. I think it was like in the high 100s. So the return was over 6 figures. But during this whole time when we were trying to sell it, I was like, this is why they didn't want to do this themselves. Like, I'm like, this is stressful for me, and I'm not even my money, right? Like, this is, I'm worried that I've wasted the company's money getting us into this deal and everything. It was stressful. So it makes a lot of sense that this homeowner was willing to kind of sell their home for a low price in order to focus on what really matters in life, which was being with one of their loved ones in probably their final months of their life. And just being focused on them and not focused on trying to sell your home and trying to stage it and trying to negotiate these contracts when they're afraid the park is going to get sold.
So what lessons did you learn from doing this deal?
So I learned that with motivation, that people can be reasonable when it comes to price, that there's some things in life that are more important than selling your home for $1, and that it's helpful to talk to the homeowner and just have a kind of an open conversation about that. I also learned that you as the company is willing to jump on a really good deal, that it's not all up to me. Because I think you had turned down a deal before, so I was kind of thinking, the company's not really interested. But of course, you, Luke, and the company will act rationally when there's a really good deal in front of you. Then you will jump on it. And that if I can negotiate really good deals like that, then those are the most profitable for us, right? That those can be much more profitable than assigning a property to someone else. And I just learned a bit about mobile homes, in that and that the question around the future of their park is something to consider, right? I had no idea that would come up as an objection when it sold. Those are the main takeaways, I'd say.
Okay. All right. Well, let's move on to the worst or your least favorite deal that you've ever done.
Yeah. So again, the least favorite deal, I'd say, we bought in Maple Ridge, which is one town over from where I live. We had a property that's this 2002 build detached house that I bought with the company, and I bought for $870,000, and we just couldn't assign it. There was no major objections, no reason why. It was just, rising interest rate kind of environment, and none of our buyers were interested. And then I encouraged the company to look at it in terms of what we call a wholesale, which is, buying the property, doing some work to it, and then selling it out the market. I didn't think the property needed a full rehab. It wasn't that old, and there were some elements that I think could be saved, and we didn't have to redo the whole thing. So the company did. They bought the property, and we hired some contractors, and the timeline it took a long time to renovate the property. And what we found is that we would give the contractors a list of things to do in the property, and then they would, it seems like if you give a list of 10 things you need to do in the property, the contractor will do maybe 8 of them. And then once you go back in, you realize that list should have been more than 10 things. It should have been like 12 or 13. But this contractor never really noticed or said anything about extra work that needed to be done that we kind of overlooked in the first time we went to see the place. So they had to keep coming back and doing work over and over and over again. And we ended up, this renovation should have been 1 to 2 months. And it ended up being like 5 or 6 months. So in that time, the housing market didn't improve. It went down a little bit. And we ended up selling the home. So I'm glad it's off the books now, but it was at basically a break even or a slight loss. And it was just disappointing that we couldn't make money. I thought we'd make $100,000 on it. There's a house that was across the street that sold for over $100,000 more than our properties that I thought was pretty comparable. But it's just how the market goes. You just need to take the best offer that you can get. And what I learned from that is we do need to watch these properties kind of like a hawk while their contractors are working on them. So I was local to the property, and I wasn't the the project manager. But what I probably should have recommended is that I check in and provide updates like weekly on the property rather than whenever the property manager asked me, because that ended up being like every 6 weeks or something that I would pop in and take a look at the place. There was one other thing about the property is that it has a really weird shape of a backyard. It has almost like a pie-shaped lot, but not the way that you'd want a pie-shaped lot. The backyard is much more narrow, and it's got a very big, large frontage. So it has a really large front yard, and then this strange pie-shaped backyard that was just gravel and just kind of unappealing. And I thought, oh, well, that's okay. You know, someone will be willing to live with that. But I think it's actually the lot that turns some people off is a family looks back there and then they picture having barbecues in this really narrow gravel-filled backyard. It's not great, right? And I probably should have bought the property for less, knowing that it has this very strange lot, and you can't change the shape of the lot, right? Like we could have pulled out all of that gravel and added grass, I guess, but then you still just have this narrow strip back there.
Yeah.
And I probably should have taken that into consideration rather than just thinking, oh, the house is decent, but you kind of need the whole package. A buyer, like a family, an end user wants to walk through it and see a really nice place. So yeah,
I wouldn't say this one was a bad buy. The reason this one was a frustrating one for me was because I don't think it was a bad buy. It was I used to say, you make your money on the buy, and then construction is just don't screw it up. And there was a bit of that on this one. We went through a couple contractors. One contractor kind of screwed us, dragged us along. We had to pay for some subs twice because the first contract, there was nothing to go after the first contractor for, didn't have the money for it. So just contractor issues and delays, and with the private carrying costs, it got expensive and dragged out. So I think we got unlucky, and I think learned some lessons a little bit about managing the contractors better. Part of that is when you're working with new contractors in a new area, there's some trial and error, and in this case, we got a bit unlucky with the contractor we were working with. So this one was frustrating because the deal wasn't bad. We should have been able to make money on it, but it just worked out in a way that we didn't. So I think that's what was frustrating for me. It wasn't a bad deal. We didn't make a bad buy. I don't think we overpaid for it. Just, basically broke even on it in the end with how it worked out.
Yeah, that's nice of you to say that. I looked at the sales in Maple Ridge, the detached sales for like the past year, and this one was like, if you sort by price, this one was, in the handful of the lowest prices in the whole town. So I guess you're right. I shouldn't beat myself up too much about that.
Just going to ask you one more final question. What has changed about your approach to buying homes with the company with your experience, or just buying homes privately? What's your change with your experience?
So what I found is the way to be successful with this company and in buying real estate is to put yourself in an investor's shoes and to think like an investor, or some people say think like an owner. So the more that I can just walk in and say, okay, if this is my own money, what do I do? The more successful that I can be. And it's helped becoming I technically was a real estate investor when I started with the company, but at that time I just had this one underperforming condo in Saskatchewan, and then now I have a lot of properties. So it's helped, even though we're not really buying for cash flow or for rentals with our company as much, but it definitely helps to now be a real estate investor, or be able to put myself in the shoes of a real estate investor. So just really think, because I have colleagues that come to me, the lead managers that are asking for help with comps, and they say, well, what about this? What price do you think this should be? And then I say to them, you really just have to think, what would an investor pay for this property? Like you were saying, with comping, sometimes we get properties in a town or like a rural town in BC, and they'll have they'll be just on the outskirts of town with like 10 acres. And they'll say, I can't find another 10-acre property. What do we do here? And I'd say, well, look at the houses in town. What are they selling for? And then what kind of a premium do you think you'd put on having 10 acres? And that's where the art kind of comes into comping. And I try to teach them what I hear from our buyers and hear from talking with you. And then I communicate that to my colleagues, and I use that myself to just try to think more like an investor. And I do have an advantage because I do talk to our buyers still, even though it's Tammy who deals with them. I still go to walkthroughs and I still talk to them about what's working and all that kind of thing. And I think that helps me buy better. Once I get to know the buyers and know what they're looking for, and I ask them about their projects that they bought, properties they bought from us previously and have already rehabbed and sold. I ask them what the renovation cost was. And sometimes they'll tell me some things about the property that I didn't even know, that it had more issues than we knew about, etc. So just thinking like an owner, thinking like, it's basically like, think like Luke. Like, what would Luke want in terms of a price, or what would you be looking for in terms of what you would rehab, what kind of renovations you would do to the property. And then that allows you to just buy like you're just buying the property for yourself. That's the main thing. When I started at the company, I was kind of just trying to buy using a formula. And then I've now been able to kind of to be a better at figuring out what I really need to buy a property for based on the knowledge that I've acquired so far.
Absolutely. That's great. Okay, Darren, thank you for your time. I think this was really valuable. I hope people learned a lot. If people want to follow you or get in touch with you, where can they find out more about you?
So you don't want to follow me. You know, it's I'm not looking for followers or anything like that. But I'll tell you, if they want to buy one of the hottest off-market deals or the hottest deals that they can go to offmarketbliss.ca. And that's where you can sign up to our buyers list, because we do have the absolute hottest deals when it comes to buying real estate in the province. Like, there's nobody even close to us. So if you're not buying properties from Off-Market Bliss in BC, then you're definitely paying too much. And then if you do know anyone who has a property that maybe is in poor condition, or they're looking for a quick close, and they just want a convenient sale, then they can go to bchousebuyer.ca and fill out a contact form, and they can contact us and maybe meet me, and I can go through their home and we can sit down and have a cup of tea and just talk about everything under the sun, and then eventually talk about buying their property. So those are the two things. My social media is just me pictures of my family and stuff like that, and that's not very exciting.
Makes sense
for most of your listeners.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much, Darren. I'll be talking to you soon. Take care.
Okay, thanks, Luke.